Ho, ho, ho! If you've been looking for the podcast breaking down everything commercial and residential Christmas installation, well, you found the right place. Welcome to Tinsel Talk. My name is Jesse Cooper, and I'm a professional Christmas decorator. And I'm here with my co-host, Caroline. You want to say hi?
Hi, my name is Caroline Puller, and I'm with a company called Seasonscapes.
Hi, I'm Kurt Carr. I'm with the Vickerman Company.
And so we are here talking everything Christmas, and we decided for our first episode, why don't we talk, how do we get into this thing? How do we all start in the business of Christmas? So who wants to go first? Caroline, you want to start?
Hey, I'll go first. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So for me, I've actually been in the Christmas industry for about 25 years now. Wow. I know I don't look that old, but a few years ago, a memory from my teenage years came back to me, which I want to share because I think that's how I realized I was very passionate about this business. And I was about 16, living in England, which is where I'm originally from. Who would have thought, right? But
Wait, hold
my
on. You're
mother,
from England?
I am. You didn't
Oh,
know,
okay, that's a
Jesse, right?
shocker. Like my mind is
Uh,
already blown by the story. Anyway, keep going.
So, my mother, God bless her, she used to be a cook and she used to do private dinner parties, luncheon parties for socialites in England. And she's cooked for lords and ladies and royalty all throughout her career. And there was one particular lady that lived in, how I would explain it is a smaller version of Downton Abbey, like a stately home. And she worked for her doing dinner parties for over 50 years. She started there when I was very, very young. Anyway, when I was 16, I was there one weekend and she said to me, Darling, as she always used to call me, and she still does, would you decorate my tree this year and I'll pay you? Well, she used to bring a brand new Christmas tree into her home every year,
A
and
fresh one, right?
a real
Yeah,
one,
okay.
absolutely real one, usually about 10 or 12 feet. And anyway, I said yes, she was going to pay me to do it. Well, she ended up taking me to London to a store called Harrods, which, if anybody knows
Wow.
what's Harrods, it's one of the most major department stores
Mind
in the
blowing.
world.
Yeah.
And it was my first visit ever, so that was kind of cool. We went to the Christmas department, which if any of you have ever been, you'll know it's a fairy tale, literally. And she told me to choose whatever I wanted to put on the tree. Well, back then I decided that I was going to do the tree all white. Here, who we know, I mean, here it is, 2024. It's very trendy still, but instead
Yeah.
of back then, everything was hand blown glass, especially in Harrods. So I bought all of this white decor for this tree, white ribbon, hand blown white ornaments, took them back to her house and proceeded to decorate her tree. It turned out beautiful. I wish I had photos from all of those years ago.
Oh,
Um,
isn't that such a bummer? I was just thinking the same exact thing.
I know, but I have the vision in my head, and I did that for her for about 3 or 4 years, and the memory went away until I don't know, it was several years ago, not too long ago. Somebody was asking, "So, how did you get in the business?" And I always tell people how professionally I got into the business, but it just made me think about all of those years ago and when I first got my paid Christmas gig, right? And how amazing it was that here I am so many years later, still in the business of doing that. And by the way, that lady is still alive. She is 91. She just turned 91
That's
last
crazy. I
month.
was just gonna ask that, Caroline.
Yeah, and I still speak to her on a regular basis. She's a sweetheart. But that's my story, Kurt. Kurt, how about you?
Sure. I know you guys have heard my story before, but I'll try to add a little bit more that you guys may not have heard. um, so for me, it started at a very young age when I was a teenager. I went down and cut down Christmas trees. What I thought were Christmas trees, they were cedar trees, and you can imagine putting cedar inside a house. It's
Oh,
uh,
I
you
can't. The
know. Uh,
smell.
Right. Yeah. It's very strong aromatic, but I love that. I don't even think I really associate it with allergies, but I just love finding a tree and cutting it down and shaping it and then put it in the house. And of course, I would always find the largest one I could, fit in the house. And then I would decorate using all of our ornaments, and my mom would add something new. My mom worked full time. And so for me, I did all that. I loved doing it. I loved creating that the joy, that experience for everyone, and I continue to do that through my after I got older, when I got married, had kids. I mean, I was driving the Christmas trees, right? I had 2, 3, that sort of thing up. And about 6 years ago, I had an opportunity in between jobs to spend time doing that. I have a love for it. I wanted to explore it. Brian and I had done a home show through the Women's Assistance League. And so it was a Christmas tour. And we set up 8 or 9 trees and we learned about all the different vendors that have different products. And we worked with different themes, and we actually decorated someone else's house on the tour as well. So we really immersed ourselves into all the product and doing different things, and just loved doing that. And so we thought, gosh, well, I'm not working. I'm gonna try to do this for other people. So we put a company together. We put an ad on Instagram and got an immediate response from someone. And I was just shocked that it went that quickly. So, social media does work for something like that. And that's how it got started 6 years ago. And we did jobs that were $5,000, $10,000, but we did a lot of new products. So we did new designs, things like that. I rarely worked with someone that was their product. It was normally we were putting a design for them and providing trees, the ornaments outside, the lights on the house outside, and putting those presentations together. So we got a lot of experience just doing that for new clients, and just loved doing that. And through this process, I met some other wholesalers in the business and thought, and I experienced working with their team, and I thought, gosh, I love this product. I want to represent and work for this company. And so that's how I really started working for a wholesale in the Christmas business. And after I started selling, I started leading the sales team, and then I've moved to a few different companies in the similar role. And that's what I'm doing now. So I lead the wholesale team and sales. And so I have a background in all this product, just my love of it. And I just kept going, kept learning. That's how I met Caroline, was in this role, selling
Right.
for the first time. I sat down with someone, and Caroline really, raked me over the coals, but she taught me things I didn't know too. And so I've learned from Caroline and other people I've worked with in the industry, whether it be Disney or other people. I've just been very fortunate to do something I love and to create that joy. And so that's that's how I got started, and that's why I'm passionate about it. And I could probably talk hours about it, but we don't want to do that. But that's a little bit about my story. How about
She's
you,
the
Jesse? What
OG of
about you?
Christmas.
Yes,
Yeah,
she
yeah. And I
is.
was just saying,
Absolutely.
Caroline's the OG of Christmas, and we all have the connector of Caroline. So before I talk about that moment, let me rewind all the way back. So for me, Christmas was absolutely not allowed. My parents and I thought about this. I'm just going to say they were Jehovah's Witnesses. It is what it is. But we literally were a cultish version where we weren't allowed a Christmas tree, couldn't go to relatives' houses during the holidays. So at like 6 years old, my grandmother, without telling my father and mother, planned a sleepover, and we set up a Christmas tree that night. And we set it up, and then she took it down the next morning because we knew if my parents caught me doing it that I would never be able to go back to my grandmother's house again. And the guilt of that, we never did it again. So anyway, my parents ended up getting divorced, and then around 13, 14, we start to bring in my mother's allowing us to celebrate Christmas, but there was just so much guilt and pressure that I never really started to enjoy it till about 18, 19. And that's when all of a sudden I was on my own, setting up my own Christmas trees. And that's where I started to just get out of control, just doing like you, Kurt, like as many trees as I possibly could, as much
Sure.
Christmas as I possibly can. And that's where I started to realize this concept of how valuable that short period of time is and how many memories other people had that I didn't have. And so that's really been my viewpoint of Christmas, is trying to kind of get all that time back that I lost. And so I started professionally doing it, where here and there, like I started working for stockbroking companies for my mother, where she was working in Boston. And then when I came to the city in New York, I started working for people like an Emmy winning TV company, and little bits here and there, but nothing like majorly professional. So anyway, jump to now. Here I am with another business, and I was listening to Mel Robbins, and I've got to talk about Mel Robbins because she was talking about passion and about what makes you passionate. And of course, you talked about it, Caroline. You've talked about it, Kurt. And it really is my true passion, Christmas. And so I was thinking, why aren't I doing this? Why aren't I doing this professionally? And so that's when I started my own business. And now here I am. So in reality, I'm more the newbie out of everybody in the group, being that my business is fresher, my experiences are fewer, but I think also it provides a good vantage point and viewpoint, because I'm going to ask the questions that other people are thinking, and I'm not going to feel stupid about it. Caroline's been in the business for forever in a good way. You've been in the business in a very professional manner. So for me, like when you talk about the wholesale companies and all that stuff, it is a world that I literally knew nothing about until I met Caroline, and she
Sure.
opened the doors, and it literally is a game changer. So I'm talking to someone right now that's an influencer about all this wholesale stuff, and I'm telling you, it for instance, just so that you know, because you're not in that world, but just to jump in my world for 2 seconds of not being in that world, to try and get colors and items and to hope that it's going to be in the store versus having the control that having your access to the wholesale items gives you, it makes Christmas even more fun. It allows you to be even more creative, and it allows your finished products to be so much grander because you can really do what you want to do versus having to do what I call make do. So anyway, for me, I could talk about Christmas all day long, but that's been my journey, is that not having Christmas is the reason why now I turn the page on it, and I find it a very positive, productive thing. That for me, when I get clients, I'm looking at it as, how can we make this the most magical time, and how can we do it in the best way possible so that we're not sopping up, that valuable couple of days of installation. We want to get in and get out. So did that all make sense? Yeah.
It does, and I'm just to piggyback on that. We've all used the word, passion and all of that good stuff. And you said I could talk about this all day, every day, and I
I really
live and
can.
breathe
Yeah.
it all day, every day, just like we all do now. I'm very fortunate. I work for a company. Christmas is 365 days a year. It consumes me both professionally and personally because I am very passionate about it. And I hope to bring to the table, my expertise over the last 25 years on the commercial side. Although I've done a little residential, mostly my own. But the commercial side, for any residential decorators listening, is a whole new area. But I know everything from designing, from concept to install to sourcing vendors, to all of that good stuff. Whereas Kurt, what he brings is from the vendor side and the product knowledge, right, Kurt?
Yes. Yeah.
You,
That's what
you
I'm passionate about. I just really was drawn to that. And then helping customers like you, Caroline, and you, Jesse. So for me, it was learning all that. I'm just always
Mhm.
absorbing and trying to help people with what they need. And if I don't have it, I'm going to take you, point you to where you should go to get it, or what you should consider when you're buying something. I'm just passionate about helping in that way.
Yeah. Well,
We're
I think
such
we
a
all are.
trifecta. We're such a
Hmm.
trifecta. And what I love about our relationship is, honest to goodness, we are in three completely different corners, but we don't step on each other's toes. And I've just found that's what I want to bring to everybody else. And I know that's what we're wanting to do with this podcast, is to be able to share that information. Because, for instance, I'll say something to Caroline and she'll say, I know, but Jesse, did you think of that? And I'm like, oh my God, the amount of time you just saved me in that little kernel of information. And so we want this podcast, I know we all feel this way, to be this sharing platform where we can all continue to up the game with our Christmas installations, right?
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, Caroline. So I think you just said it right. Why are we doing this podcast? Right. We all talked about this, and talked about it several times. I think it's really to give back, and we all want to give back in some way, and to help other people. Is the way we want to do that. So, Caroline, you've been doing it for a number of years. For me, I'm passionate about wanting to give back the knowledge I've learned and help people. And so, both of you, right? Jesse, I know you're connecting me with people, and that's what we're doing, right? We're trying to help
Yeah.
people with what they need. And so I'm excited about that, right? That's why we're doing this.
Well, and
And
Kurt,
Caroline,
not
you
to
may have
interrupt
some
you, but
additional thoughts about that. Sure.
it's Caroline keeps saying it, and I just want to make sure. So this was the whole idea of this podcast. Is Caroline saying to me when I met her at Hyde Park in Florida, she was like, Jesse, there's a slice of Christmas for everybody. And I've met people
Hmm.
that don't think that way. And so I think that it's about changing that paradigm and making sure people understand there really is enough Christmas for everyone to go around.
For sure. I mean, let's just think about this holiday and what it brings. I mean, back when I first started, from a commercial side, we only had like everybody wanted their holiday decor, Christmas decor put up the day after Thanksgiving, right? Which is very traditional here in the States. It was the day after Thanksgiving. Now, move forward 25 years from the middle of the 90s when it used to be, is I know as a company, we can put up Christmas sometimes even as early as in October. So, what it's
Yeah.
done for our industry, it's expanded the amount of time that Christmas is actually up and people are actually visually seeing it and enjoying it. But it's also expanded all of the companies that are in it a longer time. So we can actually have been able to grow our business, not just by the number of people, but also by the time that we have to go in and create, beautiful looks, right? So it's just really, really strange how it's evolved over certainly the last 20 plus years, for
You
sure.
know, Caroline, that's a selling point. I'm not kidding you that I say to everybody. I'm like, if we're going to spend this money, let's put it up. And, I know
Yeah,
that old frame of mind of having the autumn decorations with Thanksgiving, but a lot of people are really getting out of that mindset and more associating holiday decorations with Thanksgiving. And I say to people, God's sakes, it's just so much easier. That is so much work having to change out all the Thanksgiving stuff and then do it. And if you want to do it, all the power to you. But a lot of my residential clients, to your point, Caroline, want this stuff set up November 1st because they've paid a fortune for it and they want to enjoy it all the way until the end of January.
for sure, for sure.
I think so. And listening to you guys talk about all this, I think it's important for our listeners to understand what topics we're going to cover. And I
Oh,
think if we can, break that down would be important. For me, I'm thinking execution on something, but you guys probably have some things in your head about what that is. Like, what are the topics that people can expect from us?
Well, budget topics, we've got to talk about budget. We've got to talk about
Yes.
contracts. Like I know some of these decorators that I'm talking to and meeting on Instagram that are newer, that are doing things that I'm like, no. Like for instance, you've got to have a contract, you've got to have a deposit, you've got to have certain protections in place. I know, Caroline, we heard last year this year, when we were in Dallas Market, there was an influencer that got into some huge legal trouble. I never heard all of the full story, but of working with a someone on TV and they didn't have a tight contract and things exploded. So contracts and money, number one, but creative and how to speed up your installation process, how to get better ideas and beat everybody else in terms of what is the newest and freshest stuff. Caroline and you, Kurt, especially, were both at Christmas World and you guys saw everything of what is the new and the fresh. And so that's a lot of people don't have those luxuries to get out and see this stuff like we do doing Christmas all year long.
hmm yeah,
True.
it's true. Yeah, it's true. And just, I know we're going to have such a diverse audience, right? So we're going to have people that just like to decorate their own tree at Christmas. Then we're
Heck
going to
yeah.
have, professional residential decorators. Then we're going to have the whole world of commercial Christmas decorators. So I know it's really important as we talk to explain what things are. So when we talk about Christmas World, that's one of the largest Christmas trade shows in the world. It's held once a year. It's in Frankfurt, Germany. When we talk about market, that could be Dallas market or it could be Atlanta market. And there's also another market in LA. So there's lots of different events. There's an event that happens every spring, and that's called Transworld, the Christmas show, and that's another show that's held yearly in St. Louis. And that show, so we'll make sure that as we talk about these different events, you guys will know where they are, if it's something worth investing in and attending. And if you don't, guess what? We're going to bring all of the info right from here
Exactly.
in the podcast. So it will be like, you're there because we are going to be adding videos to these podcasts and photographs. And then obviously you'll be able to follow us on Instagram as well.
And guys, the
So one
other
of the
thing that I just want to point out is there's a lot of crossover between residential and commercial because I personally am doing both. And so maybe there's minor adjustments, but there is a lot of takeaway from both sides of the fence. So, I think when a homeowner, for instance, or someone that's doing residential product, you're going to learn stuff from the commercial that's just going to tighten up your installations. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
it's information that you can't get something from if it's one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
I think hearing from our followers is going to be important, right? If there's
Yes.
something that you want to know, we want to speak to that. I mean, that's the whole reason. I mean, we may have an idea of what we think you should hear, but at the end of the day, there may be something that's important to you that we can help with. You have 3 people here that can help with all aspects. So I think that you'll hear that we'll chime in those situations.
Kurt, the other thing I want to make sure we do is start introducing all of these wholesale brands to everybody, to the public, so that they know who Vickerman is, so they know who Autograph, Seasonscapes, all of these companies. I want people to get, you may not have a tax ID, but at least you can know who they are. And then the other thing that I know that we talked about, Caroline, is introducing guests. And you have a wealth of people. I already have people who are interested in coming on the podcast from different perspectives, all relating to Christmas.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I've already got got a list of people that want to jump on, and it could be vendor representation, right? Talking about products, particularly, it could be, information about Christmas trees or garlands or ornaments or filler, or even lighting, because lighting is another whole big thing, right? And that can get very technical. And then, of course, speaking to people just like us that are in the industry. I mean, everybody's got stories to share. I always say that, HGTV or Netflix should do a series on commercial Christmas decorators, because I think it would be
We're doing
hilarious.
it. We beat them to it. Nah.
It would be hilarious. It would be hilarious. Or I know I have enough. I have enough stuff to talk about to write probably a series of books. But nobody wants to listen to us every week, right? So bringing in different guests and them sharing experiences and kind of sitting in this forum and having chats about different things. I mean, I know my goal from a commercial side is to save people money, save people labor, and stop making mistakes. And there's so many mistakes that I've personally made and our company has personally made, that if people are now starting out, they may be able to learn something. And that's what it's all about.
That's a good point. Yes.
Caroline, we were the listeners don't know this, but when I met you and we had talked about this and I was testing out the podcast, Caroline knows this because I've told her before, but I was just softly testing the idea of doing this. And we were at Dallas Market at lunch, and I asked a question of, what is your worst situation? What's your best and worst stories in Christmas? And we asked 2 people who were going to have come on the podcast. The reason why I say it is the information, the story was so valuable, because now, because of that story, I learned something that will stick with me forever, that is so beneficial, because, oh my gosh, if that happened to me, it could wipe me out. And so that's the kind of stuff where, we want to get people on that can share their real time, boots on the ground stories about what it's like, because that's where you really learn. And passing that information on, just to reiterate, is the same thing that Caroline talked about at the beginning. It's that philanthropic paying it forward for everybody else, so you don't have to be in that situation. So
absolutely.
Yeah,
that's right.
Which we've got to have Jody and Gina on.
Yeah.
So guys, it looks like we're approaching 23 minutes. Yeah.
I know you were reading my mind, Kurt. I was going to say, I think that's pretty much it for today, right? You want to wrap it up?
I'll let you wrap it up, sir. You do a great job doing that.
Oh, well, thank you. I just want to thank you, Kurt. I want to thank you, Caroline. And we want to thank you, the listeners, for tuning in. And more importantly, for tuning in next time as we continue to unpack this crazy and fascinating world of Christmas installation. It's like Caroline always says, there's a slice of Christmas for everybody. Thank you for being here, and we will catch you next time.
Thanks so much, Caroline and Jesse.
Thank you.
Hey, and follow us on Tinsel Talk on Instagram.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Follow us on Tinsel Talk. Thank you. Bye, guys. First one in the books, and I think it was pretty good.